What's good YouTube, Ben here, welcome to the next video on the channel. In this one, I'm going to give you my next Warframe Steel Path Viable rebuild. This is Opticor. Let's get into this. Alright, so recently I redid my build for Opticor Vandal for 2024, and I've also now rebuilt normal Opticor as well. So of course, normal Opticor was the first variant. It actually has an insanely high mastery rank requirement. I believe it's mastery rank 14 nowadays. It used to be like a lot lower. So for those who don't have Opticor Vandal for whatever reason, you know, Opticor is pretty good to use. It's slow firing though. Like, the way it works is, it naturally is stronger than Vandal, but it's also a lot slower. Opticor Vandal, I would argue, is the better one, purely because it fires a lot faster and you can get a lot more shots. But mixed with other weapons correctly, it can be used really well. So we're going to be mixing it with Aximati Prime and Corrosive, because they're two of my favourite weapons for secondary and melee. But let's jump into the build for Opticor. So,
excellent armaments, operator.
When it wants to load. There we go. So first up, we've got critical delay, which is plus 200% critical chance and negative 20% fire rate, times 2 for bows. The negative fire rate really doesn't impact this that much, because it's slow anyway. Rhyme rounds for 60% cold and 60% status chance. Malignant Force for 60% toxin and 60% status chance. Galvanized Aptitude for 80% status chance and on kill plus 40% direct damage per status type effect in the target for 20 seconds, stacks up to 2 times. This is great because of the multiple status effects that Opticor has, along with the mods I've put on. Hunter Munitions for 30% chance to apply slash procs on critical, which is fantastic. Again, Hunter Munitions is so good for the Steel Path. Basically speaking, it's additive, not multiplicative, so because of that, it just adds on more slash damage, which is really helpful for heavy armored enemies. Galvanized Chamber for 80% multi-shot on kill plus 30% multi-shot for 20 seconds, stacks up to 5 times. So of course this is just for your multi-shot. It's much better than Split Chamber and it costs about the same. Hellfire for 90% heat, so that adds on a heat element, and Vital Sense for 120% critical damage. We've also got Vigilante Supplies in the extra slot, which converts secondary ammo pickups to 30% ammo pickup. It's not necessary, but to be fair, there isn't that many things you could add on. You could add on Cautious Shot, which is useful for this weapon. But other than that, I guess if you wanted to make it silent, you could add Hush, but even then, there isn't really that many good mods for it. And we're rocking Primary Merciless as well, so at rank 5. On kill plus 30% damage for 4 seconds, stacks up to 12 times, and plus 30% reload speed, so it does allow you to reload a lot faster. But if we go through, we're running with 60% critical chance, 60% status chance, 5.5 times critical multiplier, and then for status procs, we're running heat and viral primarily. Heat, of course, to cut through some of that heavy armor, and viral to cut through the health. And then on the charges, quick shots or charge shots, it also adds on magnetic damage, which is great, because not only does that, this also has a minor AoE effect, which will hit multiple targets that are grouped, but not only that, magnetic also helps build up with Galvanized Aptitude, meaning you get a lot more damage based on this alone, which is actually really nice for this weapon. But we'll go into a mission. I will show you what this thing can do. Alright, so we're at Oxymoco in the Void as per usual. I'll quickly explain why we're here as per normal as well. So Oxymoco in the Void. The Void is one of the most latest game areas in the Steel Path. So it gives you higher level enemies, not to mention you're dealing with the Corrupted. And with the Corrupted, you're dealing with enemies with health and shields, enemies with just health, and enemies with health and high armor. Giving you a more varied example of what you're going to be going against and what this weapon can do, essentially. So now we've gotten that out of the way, I'm going to start by activating Gloom, and I've got Desecrate on my Necros as well. My Necros build's on the channel, so feel free to use it if you want to. But as you can see, even without Primary Merciless activated, this thing hits like a truck. Now, don't get me wrong, whilst you're building Merciless, it is pretty slow. Like, I can fully charge my shot and it does a massive amount of damage. And as you can see, even affected this guy over here, which is incredible, because the range on this thing is actually a lot more than you think it is. And you only have to charge the weapon for about 2 or 3 seconds before you can fire. And then, as you can see, that's got that working, so that's fine. That's taking him out. Now, normal Opticor is actually really fun to use. And even with a build like this, even on normal star chart, like, you can destroy bosses. You can do so with Steel Path, to be fair. It just depends. Because, like, certain enemies, certain bosses are going to be weaker to certain weapon types. You know, there's not one weapon type that's strong against everything other than melee. Melee is known to be strong against everything, but to be fair, melee is also the strongest weapon type in the game, so you know, the fact that normal Opticor you can safely use on a Steel Path mission. Ideally, I'd probably use a tankier frame, I'm not going to lie. I probably shouldn't have brought Necros, because I can die quite easily with Necros. But at the same time, I'm just going to use Crosses to take this guy out, because I'm not dealing with that. I'm also going to activate my ability in a second, so don't worry, Necros players. I know full well about Shadows of the Dead. I'm going to be using it. I'm just quickly wiping this room, and then I'm going to use it. But with Primary Merciless, it is also harder to charge Merciless, I will grant that. The problem is, I tried originally with Primary Dexterity, but the issue I have is, when I'm in the heart of using melee, I will only use melee. So, like, it kind of goes to waste. But at the same time, the Primary Merciless hits, whilst they're there, and you can make use of them, it is a nice little damage boost, but as you can see, you don't even need Merciless a lot of the time. Because a lot of the time, you're either swapping between Opticor anyway, or in instances where, for example, there are a group of enemies, you're building your Merciless incredibly fast. Which is more than ideal. And as per normal, I will stay in until the Acolyte comes, which again is kind of one of those things. It can take 2 minutes, it can take 10, so if it does take too long, I will do a cut until the Acolyte comes in. Right, activate Shadows of the Dead, give me some protection. Beautiful. Alright, we are now protected, or at least mostly. Now, you can give up your critical damage boost for... Ow. I'm going to go ahead and do that. You can get rid of that and put on, like, Speed Trigger, which will increase your fire rate. However, the damage loss from the criticals, in my opinion, just isn't worth it. Because don't get me wrong, like, whilst, you know, the extra damage is nice, it's not, like, it's not worth giving that up for speed. The thing is, if you're going to want a speedier weapon, just use Opticor Vandal. Like, legit, just use Opticor Vandal, which I've done multiple builds on over the years. Like, just use it, because I'm not being funny, but if you want a faster weapon, use that. It just makes sense. Don't get me wrong, you don't get as much damage as you do with normal Opticor, but at the same time, like, if you want speed, use Vandal. That's the thing. And another thing I'm going to point out, because I always end up having to point it out, is whilst these are Steel Path viable builds, these builds are not meant to get you to level 9,999 enemies. These builds are what I call viable builds because you can use them on the Steel Path as I am doing now. But they're not meant to drag it out for 10 hours on one mission. I mean, again, I don't see the point of even doing that because unless you're specifically hunting certain rewards, fine. But I'd rather just, on an endless mission, do like 5 cycles and then leave. That way it's more chill, but... You know, that's just my opinion. It's kind of like... Oh, nice. That was actually a good shot because that hit quite a few enemies all at one time. I need to hide quickly so I can add my thing back on. There we go. Like, I never saw the point, personally, of level 9,999 enemies. But, again, that's just my sort of casual perspective. I'm not, like, at this point, I'm not a diehard Warframe player. I play as much as I can, but I don't have the time nowadays to commit because I work full-time. And then, of course, I've got streaming and stuff, which I could stream Warframe, I guess, but it's never done well for me before, so... But, like, it's one of those situations where, like, you know, I want to be able to bring, you know, new builds, because there's been a couple new Warframes out and new Primes out since I last consistently played. I just haven't had time to farm them. Like, I've got a few pieces of, like, Grendel Prime, which I still need to make at some point when I've got time. Which, to be fair, I think the next Warframe build I'll probably do is Grendel Prime. I might just farm him at some point. There we go. There's our Acolyte. We've got quite a few boosts on Primary as well, which is pretty good. Right, where is he? Hello. Right, okay, so charge up. There go pretty much his whole shields, which is nice. See, Opticor does work against Acolytes. It does absolute fire. Like, that Acolyte's doomed from its slash. There we go. Beautiful. Like, Acolyte does absolute work against... sorry, Opticor does absolute work against Acolytes. But yeah, let me know what you think about this build in the comments down below. Don't forget you can also support the channel further by becoming a channel member from as little as 9 to 10 pence per month here in the UK. And don't forget I do live stream. When I go live here on YouTube and over on Twitch at Kick and Trovo all at the same time. The streams here on YouTube are more for the shorts form, so it's more for mobile. So if you want to catch the streams at the same time in full 1080p, then go ahead and join me on the other platforms. Those links are in the description below.